And we are live. How are you guys doing out there in live land? I am joined by DLD After Dark himself, Dark Mavis. How are you doing, Dark?
Excellent. I'm here with the newest employee of DLD Hardware. Say hi, Remy. This is Remington, everyone. Say hi.
All right. Well, let's get into the news, shall we? Don't want to take up
I would love to.
time too much here.
Anytime the ATF is taking an L, I love to chat about it.
Well, they haven't taken an L yet. They're just getting their asses sued by a bunch of people. And there's actually two different lawsuits that were filed at the same exact time. One is Florida suing, and the other one is GOA and a bunch of other states suing. So basically, it is GOA, Virginia Citizens Defense League, Tennessee's Firearms Association, which I have close ties to all those groups, Gun Owners Foundation, Utah, Texas, Louisiana, and who is the final one? Mississippi. And they're all suing the ATF over their new rule, which makes millions, my favorite hockey playing Americans.
Dude, I was trying that one.
Yeah. But yeah, they're all suing the ATF over their new rule. Their new rule is that many people would have to become an FFL to sell their guns. Basically, what happened was the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act passed. Everyone was screaming in the gun community, this is exactly what the ATF was going to do. John Cornyn and the Republicans that voted for it all claimed that that wasn't the case and that wasn't going to happen, but it did happen. They changed the rules. So basically, you're not allowed to list your firearm for sale on the internet, or you're going to need an FFL. You can't tell someone the price of the firearms that you're selling because you're going to need an FFL. You can't advertise it anywhere because you need an FFL. You can't put a sign on it with a price tag because you're going to need an FFL for that. If you put it on a table, you need an FFL for that. What the ATF is trying to do is, for years and years and years, they try to get universal background checks passed in Congress, but they couldn't do it. So they went ahead and did this. The ATF is claiming that they're not using Chevron deference because we all know Chevron deference is in trouble. They're claiming that Congress delegated them the authority to do that because of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. Because in the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, they changed some of the language in there. Before, it would say, if you are a dealer, it's with the principal objective of livelihood and profit, and they changed that to predominantly earns a profit. So that small little change enabled the ATF, according to the ATF, to go ahead and change the rule. The rule is not in effect yet. It should be going into effect in a couple of weeks. It's 30 days from the time that it was filed on the Federal Registrar, which was like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, I guess. And so we got about 2.5 weeks left before it goes in. Hopefully we can nip this in the butt right now. Like I said, there's two different lawsuits. There's the Florida one where Florida's suing on their own, and then there's these other states teaming up with Tennessee Firearms Association, GOA, and the VCDL to Independent Owners Foundation, which is the nonprofit arm of GOA.
The other thing too, just to add to the craziness, when you were kind of rolling through the things that would turn normal Americans into people engaging in the business of, and I should have known when I originally read through the engaging in the business of terminology in the original frames
Am
and
I?
receivers rule.
Yeah, am I a car dealer if I put my car on Facebook Marketplace?
Now you are, yes, but the thing that struck me is like, okay, wow, they're at every single possible opportunity. This is future crime stuff. They said even offering to or agreeing to sell.
Thought
So
crime, yeah.
yeah, so like if Rich sent me a message like, "Oh man, I all of a sudden want to buy a Serbu Super Shorty, whatever," and I remember you had one, would you consider selling it? And if my response was yes, technically based on the verbiage, so obviously all of this needs to be challenged. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, there's a couple of different things that I really don't like. I don't like the all rule, but like a couple of different things. Since it's civil, and I'll explain how they get
Yes,
around that
I
and
was
why they
gonna.
do that. It's civil, so therefore you don't have the presumption of innocence. So they're going to automatically assume that you're doing it to be a gun dealer. Great, Rich.
I want to.
No, I'm going to finish.
All right.
Yeah, they're gonna assume that you're a gun dealer. So basically, you have to prove that you're not. But they also say in the rule that if they determine you civilly are a gun dealer, they can use that in a criminal case.
Yeah.
That's the way around. Okay, you can go, Rich.
Have civil cases always assumed guilt?
No. I don't know exactly what the rules are, but that's how they're trying to get around it.
I've never, I've never heard of that. I've never heard that.
I don't think
that
it's the
civil
assumption
case-
of guilt. I think it's just
I've always thought everything. Like if I get a speeding ticket, I'm not assumed guilty. If
Yeah,
I
but
get a parking ticket,
that's
I'm not
criminal. The thing is, it's civil, so therefore you are. You don't have the presumption of innocence, so
Absolutely.
so it is going to be assumed that you are in the business of being a gun dealer without a license.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's not necessarily that you're assumed guilty in civil, and of course, we know that the ATF would assume everyone's guilty, right? But it's that you lose the presumption of innocence that you typically would have in a criminal proceeding.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna share the document over here. If you look in the description, I have went ahead and linked all the links to all the documents that we have. So here we go. Yeah, so in civil defendants enjoying no presumption of innocence, and that is why they made it civil, but with the caveat that that it can be used against you in a criminal case.
But this is a rule.
It's crazy.
It's not law.
Well, they're saying they can use the fact that you violated the rule in a criminal case to file criminal charges against you. And they're saying that they do have the authority via law under the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. If you remember, John Cornyn said, it's no big deal. No one's going to exploit this, blah, blah, blah. And everyone was, a lot of people were screaming. Some people are like, people are just fear mongering. We're like, no, I don't think we are. But before I show it, anyone want to guess where it was filed at? The lawsuit was filed at?
Where, like, what district?
5th District in Texas.
Well, it was the northern district in Texas. You think of Fifth Circuit?
I figured Texas. So is all of Texas 5th District?
Fifth Circuit.
Or I'm sorry,
District.
Circuit.
Yes, you get the Southern District of Texas, the Northern District of Texas, and stuff like that. But yes, the GOA, Louisiana, Mississippi, VCDL, Tennessee Firearms Association, and Gun Owners Foundation are suing the ATF over the new rule. What they're looking for is they're asking for a preliminary injunction, which is a little bit harder. Preliminary injunction, to get a preliminary injunction, you have to do a couple different things. The first thing you have to do is prove the likelihood to succeed on the merits, and then you also have to prove irreparable harm. I think they can do both here, so that is one thing. Also, they are also asking for a temporary restraining order, which the bar isn't quite as high as a preliminary injunction, and a temporary restraining order can come pretty damn fast. That basically just puts it on hold until they can decide. So it will prevent the rule from going into effect. And I think they got a good shot of all of it. We're not going to read this all, but there's a couple different things I want to hit on. That if I did an article on this, and it hits on a lot of the stuff. So, Rich, read number 3.
While purporting to amend federal, I'm sorry, federal regulations to comport with recently amended federal firearm statutes, the final rule goes far beyond the subtle change Congress made to the law, subjecting hundreds of thousands of law-abiding gun owners to presumptions of criminal guilt for all manner of activities relating to innocuous, statutorily authorized, and constitutionally protected private sale of firearms.
Do you see? That's what I was saying. You know, the presumption of guilt is there because they're going to assume that you're in the business of doing firearms, and
Beautifully written. I got to say,
Yes,
that's
yes.
yeah. Now go for number 4, Dark.
This court's action is necessary on an urgent basis because, contrary to past practice, defendants
Usually, hold on, let me stop you there. Usually, there's a 90-day, at least a 90-day, from the publishing of the rule before it goes into effect. Keep on going.
Defendants have accelerated the effective date of their latest edict to a mere 30 days from publication, as opposed to the, I guess, original 90 is what you're saying.
Well,
It says it
90
here.
days is, I've never seen anything below 90 days. Usually it's 120, but 90 days is usually the floor.
Gotcha.
30 days is shockingly short.
So
Like
it
90
says,
days is short, but 30 days is shockingly short.
So the
Yeah.
reason you would do 30 days is you're hoping nobody could get a
Yeah,
lawsuit and a TRO.
Yeah. Keep on
Yeah.
reading, Mark.
From publication in the Federal Register in an attempt to circumvent timely judicial review. Federal regulation, blah, 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 90 days for the bump stock rule, for an example, 120 days for the frame and receiver rule, etc., 120 days for pistol stabilizing brace rule. And so that, once again, hundreds of thousands of Americans are not turned into felons overnight. This court should administratively stay, temporarily restrain, or preliminary enjoin the final rule pending full review on the merits. I'd also like to add my, this is not in here. Okay. I just want to add personally that, hey, T for Tejas, my guy. I believe anyone participating with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives should be jailed, except the couple of super-based individuals that are feeding investigative journalists info because they believe in freedom, independence, and liberty. Sorry, I'm done.
Yeah. So the rule is due to go into effect on May 20th. So a couple weeks from now, 20 days from now. Just under 3 weeks. So the rule is supposed to go into effect on May 20th. They are asking for an administrative stay or temporary restraining order or whatever. Basically, they're saying that the court does not have time to look at the facts of the case and decide whether it is justified or not to do an injunction. But because the ATF did such a short time period, GOA and these other people are claiming, Stephen, shout out to Stephen Stimbalia, who's the lawyer. They're claiming that they did that short time period to prevent the courts from being able to look at the merit of the case. So because of that, they're saying give us an administrative stay until the courts can look at it, because what they are trying to do is they're trying to get this rule in effect before it can be challenged.
Makes sense.
This could just go over the party, which we've already covered, where they are and stuff like that. Then it goes over what the Gun Control Act are and stuff like that. FFL rule. Goes over to the Gun Owners Protection Act, which was a mixed bag because we also got the Hughes Amendment out of that.
Ugh, disgusting.
Yeah, it just goes over the statutory procedure and everything that went into what an FFL is. And then it gets down to the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, which we all know was a pile of crap. Thank you, John Cornyn, and all your other turncoats for voting it. It goes over the changing of what a dealer is.
How could you ever? Sorry.
And we've already went over that, but read number 41, Rich.
Due to that tweak in terminology, 18 U.S.C. 921A22 was also amended to define to predominantly earn a profit, replacing the language obtaining livelihood in pecuniary gain with the singular intent of obtaining pecuniary gain.
Yeah, so basically they remove the livelihood part because now it doesn't have to be your livelihood.
It doesn't matter what percentage it is compared to your gross income or anything.
And it doesn't matter if you're losing money on the sale.
Yeah. It seems like money has absolutely nothing to do with it. They're just trying to so now they've gone on their journey of taking every single FFL out of the game that they can with their zero tolerance BS. Right now, they're trying to take firearm enjoying Americans out of the mix too. They're doing everything they can to attack on all fronts.
Well, and also they can. So let's say it's me, you, Dark, whoever. We're playing along. We get an FFL because Dark's going to sell me a gun. I buy a gun from whatever. Well, if I don't have a comma in the right place on a form, they're like, no guns for you. That's it. I'm out.
Yeah.
So this is they're playing 5D chess on this crap. This is not just a simple an Easter egg in the legislation. This is a freaking virus that's going to
they knew. I think the Republicans knew exactly what they were doing when they voted for it. So go ahead and read Dark. Hit number 48, please.
The final rule purports to do two things. One, implement the BSCA, which is the Gay
Bipartisan Safer Communities Act.
Yeah. And two, provide additional guidance on what it means to be, quote, engaged in the business as a dealer. Federal registry, blah, 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 blah. You want me to keep reading?
Yeah, keep it going.
However, the final rule, for the most part, has nothing to do with the BSCA. Rather, for the most part, the final rule represents an ATF wish list of how it would like the statute to operate. The final rule revises the existing definitions of dealer engaged in the business and principal objective of livelihood and profit, and it adds definitions of personal collection or personal collection of firearms or personal firearms collection, former licensee inventory, predominantly earn a profit, responsible person, and terrorism.
Of course. They always throw these little buzzwords in there.
Well, of course, because somebody selling guns and making no profit must only be doing it for, ideological insanity,
Yeah, so we're not going to read the whole entire thing. If you want to read it, you can read it all. But someone was asking out there who are who were Republicans that voted for it, and I'm going to tell you right now, it's Rory Blunt of Montana, Richard Burr of North Carolina, Capito of West Virginia, Cassidy of Louisiana, Susan Collins of Maine, John Cornyn of Texas, Joni Ernst of Iowa, Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, who I read the riot act on a 2-hour flight down to South Carolina one time, over the whole BSCA when I was going down to the gathering a couple years ago. Murkowski of Alaska, Rob Portman of Ohio, good old Mitt Romney of Utah, Tom Tillis of North Carolina, Pat Toomey of Pennsylvania, and Todd Young of Indiana. So yeah, so there you go. If you're wondering who did it.
That's insane, man.
So basically, all the documents are out there for anyone to read. But they also are claiming that it violates the APA. The APA has been a key in several cases in the Fifth Circuit, because this is going to go up. No matter if no matter who wins, it's going to be appealed to the Fifth Circuit. The Fifth Circuit has had a penchant for knocking down things for violating the Administrative Procedures Act, also known as the APA. And once again, GOA and the other lawyers on the case are claiming that the final rule violates the APA, which I'm sure it does. So go ahead and read, starting from a legal analyst, going down.
The final rule violates the APA because it's contrary to statute and exceeds the authority granted by Congress. The final rule revises.
Can you read? Can you speak up a little bit, Rich?
Okay, sorry, hold on. The final rule revises and adds definitions that are already defined by statute. Indeed, defendants claim that the fact that Congress generally defined the term engaged in the business does not mean that the department lacks authority to further define the term and regulation, but the ATF has statutory authority to prescribe such rules, and regulations are necessary to carry out the provisions of the chapter. As a general rule of statutory construction, where the terms of the statute are unambiguous, judicial inquiry is complete, and it cites case law. Terms already defined by statute cannot be further defined by regulation. Rather, the need to rewrite clear provisions of the statute should have alerted the ATF that it had taken a wrong interpretive turn. Because many terms, the final rule defines dealer engaged in the business to predominantly earn a profit, are already defined by statute. ATF must accept congressionally provided definition of these terms. In the face of congressionally enacted definitions, an agency has no power to tailor legislation to bureaucratic policy goals by rewriting ambiguous statutory terms. Wow.
But Rich, how can you say that when the number one leading cause of death in America is AR-15 bullets?
Yeah,
no,
they always try
less
to.
than 400 deaths a
Even
year.
if that were true, it still doesn't give them a constitutional right.
Of course. No, I just wanted to troll a little bit.
Not only that, they're saying that they don't have the power to. It's Congress. It's Congress's power. It's unambiguous, so you cannot just reinterpret stuff.
Yeah.
So, Dark, read B.
B. You want me to keep going?
Yeah.
The final rule violates the APA because it is arbitrary, capricious, an abuse of discretion, and not in accordance with law. Under the APA, a court must, quote, hold unlawful and set aside agency action that is arbitrary, capricious, and abuse of discretion, or otherwise not in accordance with law. 5 USC, yada, yada, yada. An agency acts arbitrarily and capriciously when it departs sharply from prior practice without reasonable explanation or disregards either alternatives to its action or the affected community's reliance on the prior rule. Department of Homeland Security, yada, yada, case law.
Keep on going.
The final rule purports to interpret the GCA, but instead departs from the statute's text. The GCA's express purpose is not to place any undue or unnecessary federal restrictions or burdens on law abiding citizens with respect to the acquisition, possession, or use of firearms appropriate to the purpose of hunting, trap shooting, target shooting, personal protection, or other lawful activity, i.e.,
That's directly from the GCA.
or shooting tyrants in the face should be listed there too.
Yeah.
Further, the GCA is not intended to discourage or eliminate the private ownership or use of firearms for law abiding purposes, or provide for the imposition by federal regulations of any procedures or requirements other than those reasonably needed to implement and effectuate the provisions of this title. The other than reasonably necessary requirement ensures the GCA does not burden lawful gun owners' rights. FOPA and BISCA, FOPA and BSCA, clarified parts of the GCA, but did not amend the GCA's other than reasonably necessary requirement. The final rule violates the GCA's letter and spirit. Boom. The final rule renders anyone that ATF identifies to be selling a firearm for a profit as a person engaged in the business of dealing in firearms. A firearm dealer without the required FFL faces civil, administrative, and criminal consequences. The final rule's 5, in quotes, engaged in the business presumptions and 7 to predominantly earn a profit presumptions are entirely arbitrary and conflict with statute.
Okay, so yeah, basically they're saying that it goes against the law, so you can't do it.
Yeah.
All right, C. Why does it violate the APA?
The
Rick,
final
again.
rule violates the APA because it's contrary to constitutional right, power, privilege, or immunity. The APA requires agency action be set aside if it's contrary to constitutional right, power, privilege, or immunity. The final rule is contrary to the Fifth Amendment as discussed infra. The final rule is contrary to the Second Amendment as discussed infra. The final rule is contrary to the Fourth Amendment as discussed infra. The final rule is contrary to Article 1, Sections 1 and 7 of the U.S. Constitution as discussed infra.
Yeah, basically, Congress has the ability to make laws. You have the right to the presumption of innocence. Also, you have the right to keep and bear arms. And due process. So go ahead, D. Let's go ahead and talk about the due process. Dark?
The final rule violates the Fifth Amendment's due process protections and is void for vagueness. Federal criminal law must give ordinary people fair warning about what the law demands of them. This cites case law. Accordingly, a law is void for vagueness where it fails to give a person of ordinary intelligence fair, that's saying a lot for the general public today, fair notice that his or her contemplated conduct is forbidden by the statute. Cites case law again.
Yeah, and 30 days is not enough for that.
Absolutely not.
Go ahead. Keep on going, Dark.
The final rule acknowledges that whether a person is engaged in the business as a dealer under paragraph A of this section is a fact-specific inquiry. It then goes on to explain situations that may be indicative of business activity, but states that there is no minimum threshold number of firearms purchased or sold that triggers that licensing requirement, of course. And similarly, there is no minimum number of transactions that determines whether a person is, quote, engaged in the business of dealing firearms. Most shocking is the example in the final rule that states even a single firearm transaction or offer to engage in a transaction, i.e., without any actual transaction, may require a license. What?
Like if I go, hey, I need a gun. Do you have this? And you'd be like, yeah, I can get you that.
I think I'll consider selling it or something.
Yeah,
Anything.
that would be engaging. So yeah. All right,
That's insane.
Rich, take up number E, please. or
The
letter
final
E.
rule violates the Second Amendment. The final rule seeks to require FFL of ordinary gun owners who sell one or more of their personal firearms for profit, including money, credit, personal property, other firearm or ammunition, a service, a controlled substance, or any other medium of exchange or valuable consideration, legal or illegal.
Yeah, basically they're saying that the ATF came out and they said that bartering doesn't get you around the rule. That if you
But
barter,
they've also said you don't even have to make a profit.
yeah,
Or
because
even apparently a transaction, even.
yeah. So keep on going, Rich.
The final rule threatens presumptions of guilt for those who engage in perfectly innocent conduct. For example, a person who repetitively sells or offers for sale firearms within 1 year after purchase if the firearm is new or like new or in its original packaging. A person who repetitively sells or offers for sale firearms within 1 year of purchase if the firearms are the same make and model. Despite the final rule regulating conduct that implicates the Second Amendment of
Sorry.
the US Constitution, the only time the final rule references the Second Amendment is in response to comments suggesting that it is a violation of the Second Amendment. But in responding to those comments, ATF was not faithful to the Second Amendment's text or the Supreme Court's instruction. The Supreme
Yeah, the
Court
Supreme Court.
recently
What they're talking about there is the Bruin decision.
Mhm.
You know that you can't do it, and it looks like the that if you read the rule, they did not go by Bruin. So this just
Right.
goes into more about that history, blah blah blah, text, whatever. One of the interesting things that I do think is that if they're new in boxes, I have a lot of firearms that are still new in boxes
Yeah.
because
I save my boxes because
I got
it
like
makes it more valuable if I ever want to sell it.
no, but I got
Look,
like ones that I haven't been taken out of the box. I haven't even opened the boxes to tell you the truth.
I think a lot of us end up
I
like
think you know
when
which ones I'm talking about.
yeah, maybe firearms of a certain heritage.
Hold on, I got one right here.
you can't show it.
The
I
barcade.
can't,
You can show the box.
but guess what, guys?
It's still in the
It
box.
might be still in the box, so I can show the box. Hold on, just grab it right down here. Yep, I got lots of these things over here. But yeah, so like if I was to sell one of the many ones of these I have, they're new in box. They haven't even been opened. For all I know, it could be a brick in there.
And
Yeah.
and so here's the problem with the situation. So let's say Geisley Super Duties are on sale for $1,300 or $1,299. I buy one for me, my wife, and my daughter. And then my wife and daughter decide they don't want an AR-15. They want something different. They just want a pistol, a Glock. Let's say they both want Glock 17s, my wife and my daughter. So if I sold 2 of the 3 Geisley Super Duties I bought, and by the way, the sale's over. They're now worth $2,000. Made a profit. Bought them each Glock 17s. I'm neck deep, eyeball deep
Rich,
into
you're
being an
already
ATF.
you're go ahead, John.
Well, here's something
Right.
else. You're right now. You're not working, right?
Right.
When was the last time you bought a gun before you didn't work,
Um,
or even including the time you didn't work?
Yeah, I'm
I,
sorry.
I mean, it's within a year. Within the last year, I bought a number of guns.
You
Thank
think
you,
he
GSA.
stopped buying guns? He did not stop buying guns.
Well, I know. Like you bought a gun since you haven't had a job?
Yes.
Then you can't sell that gun because that gun, no matter how much it is more than what you've made in the same time period.
And
So
so
you
now
need
here's
more
the
than
other
the
thing I
person.
don't like. Let's just say I bought a gun for $100, but it cost me $20 at the FFL and $10 shipping. So my cost as a business, let's just say business hypothetically, is $130. But if I sell that gun for $100, they're going to consider I'm making a profit, not
Correct.
because they
Everything.
don't include all of the costs.
Correct.
Now, as a
Shipping, taxes.
businessman, Let's just say, and this happens at West Palm Beach Gun Show. I drive to the gun show. I pay gasoline. I pay tolls. I pay the $10 entry fee, and I walk around with a sign that says High Point, $100.
Well,
And
even if you walked around and signed this up High Point 1 cent, you're
Yes,
not allowed to put signs on there.
this
right.
has already gone so far. Even if you received those 3 Geisley Super Duties, which by the way are excellent rifles, one of the best ARs on the market for the price. Anyway, even if there was any type of documentation of you considering selling them, considering offering,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
right? If you said, you know what, let me post a picture and an ad on Gunbroker or whatever and just see what I can get for 1 or 2 of these,
You can't post any ads.
done. Like that's it. With no transaction taking place. Like this is such an overreach. It is insane, you know.
All right. Let's read why it violates the Fourth Amendment.
I think it's your turn, Dark.
The Fourth Amendment states that the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, with effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Yet, once an individual receives an FFL, ATF reserves the right to enter during business hours without a warrant. The premises, including places of storage of any licensed dealer for the purpose of inspecting or examining records, documents, ammunition, and, of course, firearms. For most forced to obtain an FFL, okay, you see that language right there? For most forced to obtain an FFL by the final rule, this premises is their private home. For most forced to obtain an FFL by the final rule, business inventory is their personal collection of firearms. You see where all this is going?
Mm.
ATF can conduct this inspection without a warrant and entirely without notice. For individuals who are required by the final rule to apply for and receive an FFL so they could sell personal collections or even one firearm without being unjustly prosecuted for being engaged in the business, this warrantless search is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. Under the final rule, the ATF is entitled at least once per year to conduct a warrantless search to conduct warrantless searches of the home of, at minimum, tens, if not hundreds, of thousands of firearms owners to inspect their personally owned firearms. Now, really quickly, I just want to add this. We talked about this being gun builders. We build guns, we assemble guns, and we talked about the whole thing of if one of us were to get an FFL, we'd have to separate our inventory, right? We'd have to keep
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
guns for sale separate and then personal collection separate and then unserialized firearms, just kind of like talking through things like that,
Well,
right?
not only that, the new rule says you have to tag each firearm that says for sale or not for sale.
Yeah, so they're doing whatever they can to blur the lines of what they want is this. What they want is to see it like it is in the UK, where if you file a permit to purchase a double barrel shotgun, the police can literally come from what I understand. Things may have changed. I'll just say this because I'm not sure that it's the UK. In some countries, the police can literally just come to your door and ask to see the firearm and take it, document it, to walk in your home. If you don't present it, they can walk through search. That this is them trying to make every single person that purchases guns and just holds them fall victim to the rules and the regulations of an FFL. So they can go into any person's home at any time, search, and they can lock people up for choosing not to get an FFL. This is absolute insanity.
And the
Wait,
final thing that they claim is that they are violating the separations of power. Basically, Congress has the ability to make laws, not a federal agency. And this is exactly what the ATF is doing. But this is what they've been doing since Trump was in there with the Trump
yes.
bump stock ban.
Yep.
Yeah, as much of a Trump fan I am, he set the boulder rolling.
Yep.
Yep, this is all due to Trump. There you go.
It's insane.
So
that's
I
not
mean,
insane. We all
I know
that.
I pretty much said this word for word, but the crazy thing is, one, they're going after FFLs right now, and like, ooh, you this paperwork is like slightly incorrect, but goodbye to your license. Now, I mean, if they make me become an FFL, and then they say, oh, there was a tag missing on this gun, this paperwork's incorrect. Hey, where is that gun? And it like might be in my car or something like that, or it might be at another residence. Like I might have another property and the gun is at another location, or like, hey, my daughter's in college, I left a gun with my daughter and I can't present. They say, hey, show me all of these guns. Do they get to confiscate all my guns when they determine I'm not a proper FFL in good standing?
They get
I
to
don't
go
know.
to your daughter's house.
I have multiple houses with guns.
Do you have like a storage unit or a shed? Or this opens up any
No.
any.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I
go
have a
ahead.
gun room here, and I got a gun room in my other houses too.
Yeah, well, I'm about to reinforce some walls with steel and rebar and electric fence. Tui Edu says, I think it is laughable that we, the people, even acknowledge these clown show Fed boys anymore. This is not a legitimate government agency. This is in America,
Amen,
brother.
brother.
Yeah, a freaking man, 100%.
Yeah, I don't think with my audience, I don't think I really have to worry about losing subs because I called out Trump. It's just my audience is a little bit
Well,
libertarianish.
and the question is, I no nobody here on this panel is voting for Biden. We are not going to vote for a Democrat candidate.
No, absolutely not. But we have to acknowledge, I think what we're all a fan of is truth and reality, right? And we have
Yeah,
to, if we want to make any progress, we have to live in the world of truth, reality, and clarity. And yeah, I just,
Okay.
it's being real.
Yeah, talking about that, have you guys ever read the Ender series of books?
No, I was too busy looking at those Instagram reels that you sent me this morning.
Oh, okay. No, one of the books is called The Speaker of the Dead, which Ender is he's an adult and he has this thing where he talks about the truth about people.
He's the guy that made that 3D printer.
No, but he talks about the truth, the truth about people. The good, the bad, the ugly, and that's what we need to do.
Yeah, I agree. That's
So
important.
there you go. All right, guys, that is it. The final thing was separation of I almost said church and state, but separation of powers between Congress and the unelected bureaucrats that run the ATF. Hopefully that they will win. There's also a lawsuit out of Florida. Florida filed their own. So we'll see what happens here. And with that, we are going to get out of here. Be sure to follow Flying Rich at
Real
flyingrich.com,
quick,
Flying Rich official.
can I add one quick thing?
Flying-
Sorry, one quick thing. I think a lot of us get caught up in this world of us feeling like because we vehemently disagree so much with the left, and that we all we have our different political views and all this, that the only other side we can relate to is conservative Republicans. And I think a lot of us fall into this trap of us saying, oh, I must be a conservative Republican because I'm definitely not on this side. And I think all of us need to realize that we are all being sold out by both sides and stop parading or masquerading as a conservative Republican and start being an individual that's willing to truly conserve the Republic. That's all I'm saying. It doesn't
amen.
matter what side you pick to fight on the side of truth and reality, and let's actually conserve the republic instead of masquerading as a conservative Republican. Those days for me are long gone. Anyway, sorry, my bad. Go ahead.
Yeah, Orson Scott Card wrote the whole entire Ender series. There's a bunch of them in there. There's actually a movie too,
I'll have to
based
check
on
it
it.
out.
But yeah, but not based on Speaker of the Dead from the first book. But there's like 20 some books.
Also,
Oh.
go subscribe to 28EDU. Do you even go to his live streams every Friday evening? They're so much fun.
Yeah, whenever I can. I'm usually with my kids though. So
Yeah.
we do like retro gaming night on Fridays a lot.
Nice.
But yeah, that is it. DLD owns something called DLD Hardware. You can go ahead and Google. We are launching a website. It's coming. We've already launched. It's coming slowly, but it is coming up, and it is called Pro 2A List, where it's kind of like a slick deals and like a coupon site for all your discounts.
Mm-hmm.
Today we're gonna on John Crump Live over on John Crump Live, which you might be actually watching this on there. We have the owner of PSA on, so
Yeah.
that would be pretty fun. I talked to him this morning. He called me this morning.
Oh,
Conveniently
okay, good.
enough for Rich. Um, just joking.
To talk about his AUG.
Yeah, so I talked to him this morning. He gave me a call this morning just to confirm, and we're going to be talking about some new products that they're coming out with.
Nice.
So stay tuned if you want to find out what new products that PSA might be dropping. You might want to tune in.
Awesome.
And with that, we are out of here. Pro 2A List is ran by all of us, even though I don't think these two slackers have really contributed anything.
I'm barely keeping up with my website, but I'll be.
Hey, I built a website so you guys can make money.
You did.
Sure,
You did.
that's awesome. Thank you. And they never use it.
Thank you, Crump.
It's about the deals for the people, Crump. This is how we're not all about money. When Crump is like, "Yo, I made this thing," or you
So you
guys
guys
can
can
make a
make
bunch
money.
of money. We're like, "Yeah, all right, I'll get to it eventually."
Yeah. Yeah, we all had a plan to come up with something to make additional revenue. Of course, I did mine, and I'm like, okay, where are you guys on yours? And they're like, yeah, we haven't started.
Yeah, I haven't uploaded anything. I will though. I'm still working on my. I got 24 orders sitting over there from DLD Hardware that I got to knock out.
I finished my book, but I'm not sure when I'm going to release it because I'm sure you guys haven't even started on yours for the book challenge.
Oh, mine's been done. I had my 7-year-old write it.
All right. So there you go. That's what I thought. All right, guys. The competitions, like the Guys League competition, was supposed to be done in like December.
I'm a few days away from completing mine.
It's 6 months later.
After we put you on trial for not having it done, we pushed it. That's right. It was like December, and then we pushed it to February.
We kept on pushing it out because of Rich.
Yeah, I was trying to get some parts in, and I don't know if they're going to happen. So if it doesn't happen, I'm just going to go with what I got.
And then we were talking on the phone.
That we are. Bob, if you want to give us deals to post, yeah. I mean, it's basically about saving you guys money. We're under no illusion that we're going to make a lot of money.
No. We'll talk about the P80 Spectre.
And I just got a text by someone on the actual case from VCDFL. Phil, the president of VCDL, is texting me right now to talk about the case. So with that,
he's a good guy.
We can get out of here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Support the people that support you. Support Gideon Optics, PR Triggers, all the other Jordan Vimmer companies, JFD Supplies, Eagle Shows, everyone like that, because they make all this happen. Goonbeam, we have Tack Knives, we have the whole entire family of products. And they're really cool guys, and they hang out in the chat, so you know that they're real gun guys because they are always here and they're always watching.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I have some other news that I can't break yet from another company that has something coming out that is going to be cool. That's all I'm saying.
To answer you, Erica, we'll talk about it on my next show on DLD After Dark, the P80 Spectre.
All right, and see ya.